Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can hear the sound of my voice.
If the name didn't ring any bells, this voice definitely did. Gilbert Gottfried, one of the most iconic comedy legends, tragically died in 2022 at the age of 67, leaving us with only recordings of his memorable voice and demeanor. He fought a long battle with disease, while none of us knew anything about him even being sick. So before we tell you more about it, let us talk about the man behind the voice, Gilbert Gottfried. Gilbert Gottfried was born on February 28, 1955 in Brooklyn, New York. His parents, Max and Lillian Gottfried, worked in the catering business. While growing up in Brooklyn, Gottfried was surrounded by the vibrant culture and the everyday life of New York City, which would later influence his comedic style. For example, his iconic accent, which fits perfectly with the voice, and his jokes, which were always threatening a thin line between controversy and pure comedy. Still, this wasn't something that happened just later on in his life. From a young age, Gottfried displayed a natural talent for comedy and entertainment. He was known for his mischievous sense of humor even then, and his ability to make others laugh. He would often entertain his family and friends with jokes, impressions, and comedic antics. Despite his early comedic talent, Gottfried's childhood was not without challenges. He struggled academically and often found himself getting into trouble at school. However, his knack for comedy provided an outlet for self-expression and creativity. Seeing this, his parents recognized his talent and encouraged him while he was still having those interesting performances as a child. They supported him as he pursued his passion for comedy, enrolling him in acting classes and encouraging him to participate in school plays and talent shows. Growing up in Brooklyn definitely shaped his persona in almost every sense. He drew inspiration from the eclectic mix of people and experiences in his neighborhood, incorporating elements of New York City humor into his comedic routines. As Gottfried entered his teenage years, he became increasingly involved in the local comedy scene. He began performing stand-up comedy at small clubs and venues throughout New York City, honing his craft and developing his unique comedic style. By the time he reached adulthood, Gilbert Gottfried had already established himself as a rising star in the world of comedy.
Thank you. Oh, God bless you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Gottfried's career in comedy took off in the 1970s when he began performing stand-up comedy at various clubs in New York City. His unique comedic style, characterized by his loud, grating voice and off-color humor, quickly gained attention. He became a regular performer at renowned comedy clubs like Catch a Rising Star and The Comic Strip. In the early 1980s, Gottfried's talent caught the eye of television producers, leading to numerous guest appearances on popular shows such as Saturday Night Live and The Cosby Show. He also landed roles in films like Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Problem Child, showcasing his versatility as an actor as well.
Come right in. Don't let the fact that my door's closed dissuade you in any way from entering my office.
Sir, we're at the Beverly Hills Police Department. Are you Mr. Sidney Bernstein?
Yes, lucky guess.
Gilbert's ascent to fame had nothing to do with luck though. His recognizable voice landed him roles in the voice acting industry as well. One of Gottfried's most notable contributions to his prolific career as a voice actor was the voice he provided to the parrot logo in Disney's animated film Aladdin in 1992. It was a role that became one of his most iconic performances. He also lent his voice to numerous other animated projects, commercials, and video games.
You got a problem, Pinky? Boy, Jafar's gonna be happy to see you.
He was a man of many talents, but he always stayed true to his real calling as well. Throughout his career, Gottfried released several comedy specials and albums, including Gilbert Gottfried, Dirty Jokes, and Gilbert Gottfried, Rubber Balls and Liquor. His comedy albums showcased his hilarious, yet for some, harsh humor, further solidifying his status as a comedy legend. Even though he kept at it, love it or hate it, today he is the most recognizable by his appearances on the celebrity roasts, where he used that brutal humor to the fullest of his potential. Some notable celebrities who got burned by him were Joan Rivers, Donald Trump, David Hasselhoff, and many more.
Lisa, I do have one question. Where are all the black guys you claim to be having sex with?
These controversial jokes were part of his comedy routine, but even Gilbert Gottfried has faced backlash for various controversial statements and jokes throughout his career. Despite the occasional controversies, Gilbert Gottfried remained a beloved figure in the comedy world, respected for sticking to his stand-up bits and making the most out of his comedy. We would like to make the most of our videos as well, but to do that, we need your help. Make sure to show your support by liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more amazing videos. As we saw, this man was making us laugh for generations, if not for his acting or stand-up, then with his occasional roasts and voice acting gigs. But this is yet another case where we see that comedy and tragedy are not so far apart from each other. While he helped us with a bad day or improved our mood with a joke, he was battling his battle. But after privately suffering for many years, a genetically inherited disease called type 2 myotonic dystrophy got to him. The legendary comic died on a Tuesday, that is the 12th of April 2022, from recurrent ventricular tachycardia, leaving behind his wife Dara Kravitz and his 2 children, Lily Astor Gottfried, who was 14 at the time, and Max Aaron Gottfried, who was 12. The disease he battled with is most commonly known as a rapid heart rhythm in lower heart chambers. In most cases, it causes fainting, chest pain, and in the worst cases, cardiac arrest. Myotonic dystrophy type 2 is, as we mentioned, an inherited dystrophy, and it can affect the muscles and other systems, which could result in abnormal heartbeat. According to the Genetic and Rare Diseases Information Center, this was the reason behind the cardiac arrest that led to the death of Gilbert Gottfried. There is currently still no treatment to stop or slow the disorder. Needless to say, the only thing that he could do was fight through it, as hard as he could. A man who filled our hearts with joy, all of it while not having a healthy heart himself. His publicist and longtime friend Glenn Schwartz confirmed that the comedian suffered from recurrent ventricular tachycardia for a long time, but yet no one expected, and definitely was not ready for the news that broke out on the 12th of April 2022. The confirmation of the actor-comedian's death was announced on his Twitter account on Tuesday by his family. "We are heartbroken to announce the passing of our beloved Gilbert Gottfried after a long illness. In addition to being the true iconic voice in comedy, Gilbert was a wonderful husband, brother, friend, and father to his 2 young children. Although today is a sad day for all of us, please keep laughing as loud as possible in Gilbert's honor. Love, the Gottfried family." Before this tragedy happened though, Gilbert seemed to be doing great, despite issues with his health. For example, in 2017, he was the subject of the documentary Gilbert, which is about his life. He also co-hosted a podcast, Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast, on which he and Frank Santopadre interviewed Hollywood icons and legends.
I would like, even before the podcast was on, we would talk on the phone, and it would always fall into old celebrities and obscure movies.
She was listening in on these crazy late night phone calls that Gilbert and I were having where we just talk endlessly about nothingness.
His former co-host Santopadre said that Gottfried's humor was brash, shocking, and frequently offensive, but the man behind the jokes was anything but that. One of his statements after the death of the iconic comedian truly was beautiful, and it gave us a closer look to just the type of person Gilbert was. Those who loved him and who were fortunate enough to share his orbit knew a person who was sweet, sensitive, surprisingly shy, and filled with a childlike sense of playfulness and wonder. He'll be dearly missed by family, friends, fans, and comedy lovers all over the world. To quote Gilbert himself, "Too soon." Tributes to the late comedian didn't stop pouring in. From the moment his death was announced, Patton Oswalt, Jason Alexander, Jon Stewart, and more from the comedy world and beyond taking to social media to share their memories of and with Gottfried. A funeral was held for Gottfried on April 14th in Westchester County, New York. He was buried in the Sharon Gardens section of Conisco Cemetery in Valhalla, New York, with the epitaph on his gravestone reading, "Too soon." This is a reference to his style of telling jokes, as well as his death.
Lincoln was a great thinker. I wonder what the last thing to go through his head was.
Another comedic legend who passed away too soon and recently was Bob Saget. We also made a video about his mysterious death as well. Interestingly, one of the last times we heard the voice of Gilbert Gottfried was during an interview where he was asked about the death of his fellow comedian and friend in early 2022.
And I'm still like waiting for the punchline to show up and know that this whole thing was a bad taste joke.
Now for his death as well, all of us are hoping that there is a punchline, that it didn't really happen, but sadly it did. And one thing is for sure, these 2 friends are now together once again. Gilbert is watching us on and laughing with us every time we remember one of his skits or jokes. Speaking of which, let us know what's your favorite one down in the comments below.